Hi, I'm Alan Haig, and thanks for joining me today as we ride shotgun with Jack and Robin Saltzman. Jack began his career in law before switching to automotive retail in Orlando. He ended up working for the AutoNation organization for many years, eventually being responsible for running 30 dealerships for them. He then bought into his first dealerships with Terry Taylor in North Carolina, eventually buying Terry out. He and his wife, Robin, built an extremely successful business in Lake Norman, selling that business with some assistance from our firm for the most money ever paid for a Stellantis dealership. They built their business on hard work, betting on themselves, and heart. And I think you'll really enjoy what they have to say. Hello, everybody. My name is Alan Haig. I'm here with my teammate, Derek Garber, and we're here to have a nice discussion today with Jack and Robin Saltzman. We had the pleasure of working with the Saltzmans a little over a year ago now in the sale of their two businesses and truck upfitting center. And we're really pleased you're taking the time today to visit with us and share with us and our audience your history in the business, how you were successful, and what you're going to be doing next. So maybe I'll just start off by asking a really general question about how you all got started in auto retail.
I was a couple years out of law school at the time, and I knew I didn't want to practice law, so I knew I wanted to quote unquote get in business, but didn't really know what it meant at that time. Robin had a friend who recommended I go see a partner of Sam Swope's in Orlando. Kim Hackett, and Kim and I hit it off, and that's how I got in. Pontiac Saturn store.
What did your parents say when you told them you were leaving the practice of law to be a car dealer?
Well, I never practiced, so that was the easy part. But yeah, I don't know if they were thrilled at that point. Let's just say they probably weren't thrilled that I was getting into the automotive industry. But my mom's grandfather had a little lot in Brooklyn way back when, so maybe I think that kind of eased her pain a little bit.
So it was in your blood?
Sort of, kind of, yeah.
All right.
Maybe a little bit.
Robin?
Well, I was in radio, and everybody always says, what side of the microphone was I on? Well, I was in sales, so I never was on the air, but I was in advertising and in management, and that's where I met Jack. He was one of my clients, one of my not favorite clients, by the way. And
it's because he was negotiating for a discount?
Oh, it was just terrible. And so I would go back to my manager and say, please give him to somebody else. Huh. And she'd be, no, Robin, you guys are going to hit it off well. And I don't know what was going on with her. But then he started sending me flowers.
Oh. Aren't you supposed to be the one that's supposed to be sending gifts to the client?
The courtship was painful. He was relentless, huh. And the flowers would come every Friday. And every Friday I'd say to the receptionist, please take those home. And then he lured me in with sports because I'm a big sports fanatic. So he lured me in to go see Andre Agassi play. He had great seats. So I said, I'll go, but you have to pick me up at work, take me back to work. I mean, this is not a real date. So that's kind of how we got started. And here we are. How many years? We have an anniversary coming.
Anniversary next month, 34 years.
Yeah.
Are you still sending flowers?
Yes,
absolutely.
All right. All right.
And I accept them now. Yes.
So the first lesson I'm hearing is persistence. So then, as I recall, one of my first deals at AutoNation back in 1996 was acquiring those dealerships that you worked at. It's funny how the world circles around. Yep. And I met Kim Hackett, and he joined the AutoNation team in Stockdale. Yep. And so you came into the AutoNation family at that point.
Yeah, actually, I came in right after that because I had left there. I was just a sales manager, not just, but that was my first job. And then I became a GSM with Don Mealy. And so I was running their two Chrysler Jeep stores in Orlando. And then AutoNation acquired us, I want to say 1998-ish, and worked, with, them closely until 2003.
So you had the opportunity to work with Mike Maroney then?
I love Mike Maroney. A huge mentor for me. I was the first one in the company that had 3 stores, the first general manager to have 3 stores. And then Mike also invited me to speak at the shareholders meeting in Fort Lauderdale. And it was interesting.
That's about the time that Derek was being born, I think.
Probably, yeah.
Probably.
So then you were part of the AutoNation family for a while, and you decided to go out on your own.
Listen, I learned a ton from Mike. I mean, he was way before his time on micromanaging and learning, all the KPIs and everything. And I just thought it was great. But the disconnect I had with AutoNation at the time was I didn't really want to be corporate. I was a hands-on general manager, got to know all of our employees, and it was just something that part of the business I really liked. And then I got promoted at AutoNation to a district vice president, and which is great. Honored running 30-something dealerships or overseeing 30-something dealerships, and that was a huge honor. And I appreciate Mike having the confidence and faith in me to do that. But I felt disconnected from the actual dealerships because it was a lot of reports and things like that. And that's when I, knocked on Robin's door in her office and said, "Hey, I heard there's a dealership for sale in Lake Norman, North Carolina." And at the time, it's funny because there's no city named Lake Norman. It's just an area, right? The city's called Cornelius that we're in. So I didn't even know any details. I was just told it was a beautiful place and we ought to check it out. And I said, listen, we'll go buy this dealership and you can come retire. That was my sales pitch.
Yes, that was his sales pitch. He fibbed because we came up here. Well, we loved it as soon as we saw it. So I said, okay, all right, let's do this. We'd lived in Florida our whole lives. So it was a big deal. It was a big change for us, big change for our families too. So we got up here and he goes, well, if you could just help a little bit. Yeah, right. We worked from 7 a.m. to midnight for months and months and months.
What year is this, Robin?
2003.
Yeah, trying to get the dealership was not in very good shape.
Mm-hmm.
The reputation was not good. And
this is the Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram store.
Yes.
Lake Norman.
It was all the brands at that point too?
Well, Ram, I mean, it was
Ram
Dodge
makes
truck,
sense.
but Ram, they changed that.
Yeah.
But let me just add one thing. Robin, I had to convince Robin to do this because she was vice president general manager for CBS Radio. She had a big job. I mean, I had to go to the corner office and get permission to go back and see her. And
he had to ask my assistant if I was available.
Yeah, so I mean, I had to do my best sales job to get it. And she may not say this, but so we get up here in June of 2003.
So you had a prestigious, impressive, well-paying position, as did you.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe yours is even more higher paying. And you both threw that in the trash can to go and take a risk on a small store in an area that you knew very little about. That's a big risk to take in your 40s. How old were you then?
I was just turned 40. Yep, I just turned 40. So if I could say anything to anybody, bet on yourself. I mean, that'd be my message for today, for any person coming behind us or anything. Nobody's going to work harder than you for something for yourself. So bet on yourself at all times. And I don't know if people are afraid, but Robin's conservative by nature way more than me. I'm a little bit of a risk taker and a gambler, and she had saved a lot of money for us. And we got a chance to partner with somebody that is like Mike Maroney, an incredible dealer.
So let's talk about your partner for a moment, who I believe has the largest group of dealerships, as far as I know, in any country. Right. So that's Mr. Terry Taylor.
Yep.
So how did you get to meet Terry, and how did you decide to partner with him?
So because I came from a Chrysler background and he was buying a Chrysler store, the zone manager at the time in Orlando, was sad to see me just managing Chrysler stores. And he kind of, wanted me back in the fold. And he says, listen, there could be an opportunity. I wasn't soliciting it. I mean, I was happy at AutoNation, even though it wasn't my dream position. It was a great opportunity. So the zone manager called Terry, and
Jack, at the time, AutoNation, that was in its powerhouse days, as I recall. It was still growing very quickly.
We were big.
There was a belief that they were going to significantly transform the business and be a company that would be a winner, so to speak, in auto retail. So please continue about how you met.
AutoNation, it was growing fast, and it was still, everybody's trying to find out, what to do and how to do it for AutoNation, right? I mean, they were just so busy buying stores at that point. But, I met Terry, and he's without a doubt one of the sharpest human beings I've ever met. I mean, he knows everything about a dealership, even though he only goes there maybe once or twice a year. And it was incredible. And but he and I we had a real good relationship. He didn't come. I mean, we were one of the top performing stores at that point, and it was interesting. And I'll let Robin share this, but Robin handled all of our advertising, and for Terry, they handled all the advertising at the stores. And and so for Robin to handle it, she had to do battle with Terry one-on-one herself.
So for folks who don't know Mr. Taylor, he has a lot of dealerships around the country, and I believe in most of those dealerships, he has an operating partner that owns equity, true equity in the business. And maybe you buy some and maybe you borrow some money to buy some more, but you are a partner together in the operations of the store. And Terry, I agree with you. He's one of the smartest people I've ever met. He's very quick. He's very decisive. And rightfully so, because he's had great success. But you didn't always agree with some ideas about how to promote the business. Is that right, Robin?
No, we would have meetings, and he and I would go head to head on it, and I would just say, this is what I think, and he'd say what he'd think, and then I would get up and go back to my office, and one day I'm sitting in my office, and I look up, and he's standing there, and he's very, like, everybody's afraid of him almost. Like, he just carries himself in a way that you're just like, whoa. So he's standing there and he goes, I just want you to know I disagree with you. And he just turned around and left. So I was just like panicked. I'm like, are we going to get kicked out of this place? Because we were a minority partner. So like, are we going to get kicked out of here or what? But after that, he said, he told us, just put your foot down and go for it. And I did.
What is it that you wanted to do?
Well, the biggest part I told Jack is I said, listen, Jack wanted to run it and advertise like a car dealer. And I had dealt with car dealers for many years. And our car dealer is very simple. It's like, I had a bad weekend, cut my advertising. I mean, I dealt with that for years on the radio side. So I told him, I said, we're not doing that. That's not the way this is going to go. We're open 365. Okay. We're going to advertise 365, not just the last weekend of the month. We are going to have a good reputation. We're going to run this a little differently. And he fought me tooth and nail too. Jack did. And finally, I was just like, if you want me in here doing this, then this is how we're going to do this, And I brought in the community element to it. I was used to radio where we got out in the community. We had to be really good to our listeners. We needed more listeners so that I had more listeners, so that I could sell more advertising. And so I said, we're going to get out in the community. And car dealers just normally don't do that. So I bought, a tent and tables and a wheel to spin, and we had giveaways. And we went out into the community and we sponsored events, community events. We sponsored charity events. And we were out, we had a team of people, and we were out every week, just, out in the community. And years of that, I believe, really, really helped us. First of all, changed the perception of a car dealer.
Is that because they could see a face as opposed to hearing an ad where they talk really quickly at the end about the special discounts?
Right. Well,
what is it that you did differently to create trust with your dealerships?
Well, first of all, in all the years, we never had pricing in our ads, ever, because I didn't like the disclaimers either. So never. And it was always image. It was always, I looked at research, and the number one reason somebody comes to your dealership is your inventory. Number two is service. And so I said, we're just going to focus on that. So we just had very simple, we used the same slogan the whole time. We used the same jingle the whole time.
What was that?
Well, it was
why go anywhere
else?
Why
go anywhere else? It was, it was just simple. Why go anywhere else? So we were out there just a face.
And this was pre-internet as well. So we did have 1,000 cars on the ground, and we were the largest. People would come from all over. Once we fixed it. So in in 2003, it was pretty broken. We had a store across the street that was Chrysler only, or Chrysler Jeep, and then on the other side of the street was Dodge. And both stores were not healthy financially, not healthy with employee morale or anything. One store was really, really old. And then Terry was, smart enough to combine them. We built a big showroom, and away we went.
Well, then we added Infinity and Hyundai. We opened those stores also here in Cornelius with Terry.
Yeah, we're a partner with Terry in all three of those.
Yeah, that was fun too.
And then fast forward to 07, really 06, Terry was getting a little sour on Chrysler Jeep. Chrysler has always gone boom and bust, and that's just their history of how they do things. So Terry's getting a little sour, and he had a lot of Chrysler Jeep stores. And at the time, our oldest son was, coming to us saying, "Hey, guess what? We're going to have, a baby." And Robin's like, "We're moving to Dallas." And I told Terry that, and and Terry was like, "Okay, let's sell the store." Well, nobody wanted it, and I'm like, "Okay, well, we'll buy it." Now, granted, I had no clue how we were going to do it, and we were one of the rare ones with Terry. We were store number 40. We'd paid him up front and, fully when we started. And, and I think he appreciated that. And, in hindsight, him agreeing to sell, we're the first, people to ever buy a store from Terry. He's typically not a seller, but we closed January 1 of 2007, and things got a little dicey right after we bought it. But, that was super nice of Terry to do that for us.
So 2007, you're proud new owners of your dealership. You own it all, right? The Infinity and the Hyundai. You stepped away from those operations.
Yeah. He bought us out of those two, and then we bought him out of Chrysler Jeep at the same time.
So something happened around 2007, 2008, 2009, if I can recall. What was that like?
I think the ink dried and the bottom fell out. Like the ink dried on a Monday, and Tuesday the bottom fell out. And I'm like, God, Terry, God, how did he know this? And we went from 350 cars a month to, 300, 275, 250, 200. And it seemed like, it just wouldn't stop. And I remember one salesperson who was with us, ended up being with us a long time, Ed, and he said, "Hey, boss, we don't have any used cars to sell." And I'm thinking in my head, we don't have any money to go get used cars, okay? I don't know what else to tell you. We're fighting for our life right here. And, it was tough. We borrowed money from 401ks.
So it's the second time you really shoved all your chips in.
Yeah.
We emptied every account.
We each had a list of employers we're going to go call and go to work for.
That's amazing.
It was that tough. We each had our own list of who we're going to call.
How did you show up for work every day, knowing the accounts were almost empty, and still lead an organization and promote it? Because you were out in the community still too, right?
We were. And I don't know how we did it. We just did it. You just walk through, and every day you just go in there, and behind the scenes, then you have your meltdowns and your breakdowns. But I had one particular breakdown.
Proudly, though, we didn't lay off or reduce an income of any of our associates.
No, we did not. But we had a meeting. What I remember of the whole mess was we had a meeting in his office, and we had our attorney, and we had, who else did we have? The landlord.
Yeah, we were in a REIT at the time. So
we had a room of us. And so somebody looked at us and said, "You just need to file bankruptcy." And
you need to hire a good personal bankruptcy attorney, because Chrysler's going to file bankruptcy too.
So I said, "If you could excuse me for a minute." So I go to the ladies' room, I cry, pull myself together, go back out. And I said, "No." Of course, he's probably like, "What is she up to?" So I said, no, we're not doing that. And so I told him, I said, we're going to sell the collision center and get some immediate cash and continue to make payroll, and then just figure this out. Just take it a step at a time. And that's what we did.
We did.
And then Chrysler declared bankruptcy.
Yeah.
2009, was that the year they went bankrupt?
I think it was 8. 8?
Okay. So you show up and you hear your supplier is bankrupt.
You're waiting for the letter, right? They sent letters to all, the dealers. Are we going to be, if they knew we had 10 cents in the bank, we probably should have gotten a letter, but we were one of their largest stores in the country at that point. So I felt comfortable we weren't getting the letter of termination. But,
because Chrysler did terminate hundreds of its dealers around the country. Yeah.
We had friends that.
Yeah, it was awful. And we were so broke at the time, I couldn't help him. One of my closest friends wanted me to buy his parts. I'm like, I wish I could. I mean, if you want to put them here and I sell them, I'll pay you. But I mean, we don't have the money. I remember going to local banks and telling them I'm doing a big used car program because the economy is really bad and people want used cars. And I went to 4 local banks, one right after another.
You might not want to tell too much of this story.
And they end up giving me a personal line of credit.
Okay.
Now, but I went to 4 of them, and they probably, at the time, the reporting wasn't probably very good, and I ended up getting 4 lines of credit. And with that, plus robbing our 401k, it got us through. We made payroll, and as they say, the rest is history.
So you shoved all your chips in, and some other folks' chips in.
Yes, we did.
Definitely some other folks' chips.
And so from the time that you made your first investment in the store with Terry, that was, did you say 2003? So now you're 2008/9. So 5 years, you righted the ship, and then the ship sprung a massive leak. Not because of anything you all did,
right,
but because of the economy. That was the Great Recession, and your supplier was probably the weakest of the major OEMs.
Correct.
All right. So all the chips and your banker friend's chips are in the table. A lot of them are disappearing because the losses continue. When do you feel the turnaround?
It was pretty quick. I mean, so yes, we did lose money, and our working capital wasn't great, at the time. So we didn't have a whole lot of, leniency, but, we had a great reputation, because of what Robin did. And, people came back to us first. And once they saw us still there, we had a really prominent location on a major highway. So I think it helped us, and we just stayed calm and sold cars.
And then you had a decade of massive success.
Yes.
Starting from 2010 on,
Yep.
Well, really more than a decade.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little about the good days. You expanded.
Yeah, they were fun.
You acquired another dealership.
Yeah, but I will say this again. Robin's a lot more conservative than I am, but I was always looking to grow, and we found the Gastonia store. It was struggling, had a low MSR, which is your minimum sales requirement. They were well below 100, and we worked to acquire that. And but Robin wasn't really in favor of it at the time. Now, fast forward to where she got a proclamation from the city for all the charitable work she did in Gastonia. So it worked out well. And then our style is we get immersed in the community. And so, it's just different. We're not technical or maybe technically savvy at that point. We get in and do it personally, the old-fashioned way, get to know our people, get to know their families. And, my biggest thing was I love going to lunch, with our technicians. And we'd go in this room, at a local Mexican restaurant. I'll walk to it right near Lake Norman. And it was a U-shaped table. And they just talk about anything. So, and they love going there, and everybody leaves laughing. And I think, Robin was like homeroom mom. I mean, she knew everybody, and everybody would come to her. So it was just a different atmosphere that we built. And we'd end up doing the same thing in Gastonia.
Can I go back again to the community relations and your interactions there? We haven't talked much about the charity side, which some of it is just pure goodness of heart, but it also had some benefits to the company. So talk more about the organizations you supported and how they ended up supporting you.
Right. It did. It started out, I remember our very first community interaction when we had money to be able to help someone. And it was one of our local newspapers, Dave Yoakum, from Cornelius Today, Business Today. He walked in and he said, Robin, I want to start this event called Big Day at the Lake. And it's going to benefit big brothers, big sisters. But I don't know how to do it. I don't know what to do, but I know I need t-shirts. Can you give me $2,000 for t-shirts? I was like, okay. So that was my very first time to get involved in something charitable. And, I would guess if I look back now, each year it would build, toward the end, when we sold the dealerships, we were donating well, more than $1 million a year.
Okay,
in charitable.
let's just stop right there.
There's one thing I remember when we first started working with you guys, and we're doing evaluation and trying to determine what, the true net income is, doing the adjustments. I'm looking through the dealer statement and you see the contributions line. I had never seen a number so large.
Are you telling me? I remember this specifically, and you were trying to tell me that there's not a buyer out there that's going to believe we did this. I remember you telling me that.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I was looking at them like, okay, they're putting something through this line that's going through there. But we discussed it and we went through everything, and I'm like, we can't even add this back because it's the reason you guys were as successful as you were. You integrated into the community, and that's what drove the massive volume that went through that.
Every October, I would do a forecast for the following year, and in the forecast, right, you'd have your sales numbers and gross profit per car, and it very elaborate for me, right? It was but I'm sure other people it wasn't very elaborate. But part of that was I had a formula. We were going to spend $500 a car in advertising for every car that was on my forecast. And once I handed it to Robin, she was off to the races, and she would book her advertising for the year. But in my advertising spreadsheet, I had a line for community because I knew that was there. And I'd put it in there every month like it was like what we did. So it wasn't a surprise.
Right.
So we have friends that are in the digital marketing business, and they can quantify, hey, for every $1 you spend on Google, you get $1.20 back, or whatever the numbers are. And I think it's really important for this story to come out that I'm sure you spent some money on Google and did digital search and everything else. But the fact that you spent a lot of time with individuals, with organizations, with the school system, with the Big Brothers, with the animal shelters, feeding the homeless during the pandemic, I think you all were providing, there's a local restaurant that you supported that provided meals to kids that were on supplemental assistance in the school system, but they weren't getting breakfast and lunch and aftercare meals because the schools were closed.
Right.
These kinds of tangible actions that benefited so many people in your community really was a material part of your success and the joy that you got from going to work.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? We two things.
We couldn't really go anywhere without someone recognizing us and saying, oh, we support you, we buy from you because we're animal lovers too. We know you support the Humane Society. Or, our child was granted a wish from Make-A-Wish, and we know you support Make-A-Wish. And so we will never buy any car from anybody but you. So, we, after years and years of that in a community like this, we didn't have to. I advertised, radio and digital and print, and we advertised anyway, but a lot of it got to be because they became my friends and I knew what it meant to them, our advertising dollars, so I wouldn't cut that back because it would affect them personally. But we probably didn't need as much as I did. I was always over budget.
And my 20 group, I was definitely number one in overspending in advertising.
Yeah, he would go to 20 group meetings and come home and say, the guys are all telling me we're spending too much. I'm like, well, it's a good thing you don't live with those guys. You live with me. So, this is what I do. And we're doing fine. And it's you got to look big picture, and I would never allow him to throw the numbers in my face. Like, like you spent $5, we only got $1 back, or, all that stuff. I'd be like,
well, let's talk about the results. Yeah. How many new units were you selling? What was your peak number?
North of 4,000 at Lake Norman a year.
North of 4,000. And the community of Lake Norman, it's growing, but it's not Miami, Florida. It's not Dallas,
when we
Texas.
Got here, it was, I think, 13 or 15,000 people.
So you were one of the top 5 dealerships certainly on the East Coast, I believe.
Yeah, in the Southeast, we're top 3. And then in the country, crack the top 10, every now and then. And in CPOV, we're top 5 in the country.
So this wasn't a little mom and pop operation.
You can say that, but it really was. It was, yes, we had managers and stuff, but we had baby showers at our house for employees. We had all sorts of things. These aren't, and I'm not talking about key managers. I'm talking about just, all of our people. And one thing, Robin won't say it, but more than 10 years ago, Robin came in, just like I came into her office. She said, listen, nobody that works for us is going to be poverty level. So anybody that works for us can be paid $15 an hour. And I'm talking 10, 12, 13, 14 years ago. And so we were paying anybody that worked for us a minimum of $15 an hour. And I remember my service manager come to me. He goes, I can't make this work. I can't pay an oil changer $15 an hour. I'm only getting $20 to change the oil. I'm like, sorry, you go take it up with Robin. And they're like, no, that's not going to happen. So, even the part-time oil changers, the kids that, were going to school during the day and coming in and changing oil in the afternoon, getting $15 an hour. So it was we just treated it differently. We were mom and pop, though. We didn't have, teams of analysts or anything and fancy spreadsheets and KPIs. We just dug in and made it work.
So it really was that a mom and pop organization running on your own gut instincts and your heart did outperform the conventions that are in our industry.
She got up. We had a 20 group meeting. I forgot where we were, and it was all on advertising. I said, and she would go to the meetings, but she wouldn't sit in them. And I was like, this morning you got to sit in this one. It's all about advertising. And this is when, I forgot what year it was, and everybody all in, they're going to push, like we did, all their chips in digital. They're going to cancel radio, TV, print, and everything, 100% digital. And Robin got up and told them, and then nicely, that's absolutely the wrong idea, and we won't be joining the party. And they did. And we went from, being okay in the 20 group to just being number one in just about every metric.
I think that's a fascinating part of your contribution to this industry, which we're going to continue to build on here. So now this place is rocking and rolling. You're selling thousands of new units a year. Mm-hmm. You're providing great opportunities for your employees. You're providing $1 million a year in charitable contributions in addition to the other advertising you're doing. And you're in an 8-acre facility. You're bursting at the seams.
6 acres.
6 acres, excuse me. And you start to lay out plans for one of the largest Chrysler stores on the East Coast. What does that look like?
Well, right before we did that, there's a building in between where I was going to buy the lots and the old dealership. And it used to be an old movie theater. And then Michael Waltrip, the NASCAR race driver, bought it and added on to it. It ended up being a 112,000 square foot facility. And it had an interactive race shop, so fans would come in there and stuff. Anyway, Michael retired. And the building sat empty for, a couple of years. And I forgot. Somebody said, you should go look at that. I'm like, what could I do with that thing? Then I walked in and then my head just started spinning. And I'm like, you know what? We could do this. I walked Robin into it, and she goes, have you lost your mind? It's 112,000 square feet. It was another 8 acres. I could park I'm thinking I can park 300 cars there. And at this time, we had lots all over the city. We were renting, and cars were everywhere, and the town wasn't real happy. They were on both sides of the interstate. And I'm like, this could really help us, make us more efficient. We'll sell more cars. Plus, we can get into the Jeep aftermarket business, which we created a company called Caroline Custom Wheels and Tires, and end up doing over $5 million in sales annually. And that just created a huge extra vertical for us that we really never had. We were sending that business out to a competitor. And then that's when we got into the truck upfitting, the fleet business. And that, again, really separated our store from just about anybody else. So most dealership had a new car, used car, service and parts as their, revenue opportunities. We added 2 more. And I think that really, separated us towards the end. You
got into some retail business with the tires and wheels and things like that, but also commercial fleet upfitting. Yeah.
And, making that investment, that was a huge choice. I mean, that's a massive building. And by the way, it's the most impressive body shop upfitting center I've ever seen at any dealership around the country. I mean,
because it doesn't look like it.
No, it was beautiful. I mean, really walking in, it was amazing. But to make that large of investment, did you have a plan for the upfitting business, the commercial business before, or that you found that out after? Because that was a huge part of your guys' organization.
Plan is a tough word to use. I had an idea and a thought we could go after it. Robin wanted us to be in fleet for years, and I'm like, we can't. We have no room. I mean, there's just not a chance we could really get into the commercial fleet business. And I'm like, maybe now's our chance. And that's how it started.
Okay.
But one of the neat things about that building that Robin used is we made a room called our community room and had really neat graphics and everything of all the charities we served. And Robin would hold meetings, and any nonprofit company in the area could use it for free. And so that really was another neat benefit of that building.
It tied back to, so the chamber could come use the room, or charities could, or any community, Rotary, or it could come use the room for free. Well, okay, so then what does that mean, right? They're coming to our place to do something for themselves. While they're there, we're giving tours. They're learning all about our business, all the things that they did not know about us. And these are bringing people in from everywhere that may be driving other cars,
Mm-hmm.
but all of a sudden, wow, okay, here we have them captive,
Mm-hmm.
to show them our story and to give them the opportunity to want to do business with us. I always told my salespeople, and sales was what I loved, and it's always what I did in radio. And so in automotive, I tell them these are salespeople the same way, so I would love to stand up in the sales meetings. And I tell them, listen, guys, we need to all get to the point that you're not a salesperson. You're not having to sell anything. You have those people walking through the door want to buy from you.
Mm-hmm.
So when we get to that point, and as a salesperson, when you get to that point, you've made it. And so I loved doing the sales meetings. But what I really loved about doing the sales meetings was I always brought a stack of cash with me. And I always would throw out the money to everyone. It was a big to-do. And as a matter of fact, we were at one of the dealerships that we sold not long ago, and the guys were like, we're having a sales meeting this morning, and it's just not like when you used to be here. And if I would have not thought I was stepping on toes, I would have walked in, busted in, and pulled out a couple hundreds and had fun, But it was good times. We loved that, and we really had a lot of good,
fun.
Yeah, a lot of good times with our
One of Robin's
guys.
signature events was Christmas in July, and it got really, really big. And what happened
really
was the dealership would pay me, so I would take all the taxes, and then I'd give Robin the cash, and then she would go buy TVs and computers and trips and concert tickets, and they would pick off this tree envelopes, and we did it by seniority.
Mm-hmm.
Which was a big deal.
We had $50,000 in cash in envelopes on a Christmas tree.
Yeah.
Wow.
For our sales department. They were wild. They would go wild.
Christmas in July was a big deal.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Now that was just a benefit to your employees, or was it an incentive of some kind, or just if you've been here long enough?
If you were here more than 1 year, you knew about it. And hey, listen, one of the things, and we learned this at the time deal of the year in 2018, we had to fill out this application, and you got to see one of the part of the application was your employee longevity. And I fill this thing out, and it's, 0 to 5 years, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, and 15 to 20 and 20 plus. I'm filling this thing out. And I'm like, okay, there's 6 people over 20 years. That means they were here before we were. There's X amount of people, 15 to 20. And I'm like, this is crazy. I mean, we had low turnover. We one of the reports that we always were fanatical about in our monthly manager meetings was turnover reports. I mean, if there's more than a couple of people on there, we would just kind of go crazy. Like, why? How could they leave? Right?
Why go anywhere else?
Why go anywhere else? So we took it personal, and I think that just kind of permeated through the organization, and that really helped us. And the Christmas in July, was a big deal, and I think people loved it.
So now you've got your truck center, and you've got another bigger plan in the works too. What does that look like?
So we couldn't buy the 6 acres. It was in a REIT, and I knew we needed to grow. I knew 6 acres just wasn't big enough where I thought we could get to. And so I started contacting, I asked our attorney to start, seeing what was available. And of course, right down the street, there ended up being some acreage. And we agreed we're going to buy, I think, 15, 20 acres. And then the seller said, hey, listen, I'll sell it to you, but you got to buy these 6 from my sister. I'm like, okay, 6 more acres. Okay, I'll do it. And then she gets, say, hey, listen, I'll do it if you buy these 6 from my other sister. End up being 30 acres after we got all the family members flushed out. And, and we put the dealership on 20 acres and turned out fabulous. 55,000 square feet and one of the nicest, I think in the country. And we had, what the goal of that store was every department, you look and tell me what you need, because I don't want an excuse. I want to be the best in the country. And whether it's customer service, performance, you tell me what you need. And that's how I did it. I mean, thankfully, we're, doing pretty well cash-wise, and we could afford it. And we had an outside waiting room. We had an indoor waiting room. We had a parts department, triple the size of our parts department at the old store. And I just wanted them to have everything. And listen, one thing, if you worked for us, and Rob, I'll tell you, I bought every tool. I was a salesman's dream come true. I bought everything because I didn't want any of our people to have an excuse.
So now but you're not open. This is a plan. This is on paper. You bought the real estate. Yeah. You've got the permits. You're working with the city.
I had to get Chrysler to bless the relocation, and no protests. And I had to get up through all that.
And then you start to have a thought about maybe this is not something you want to continue with your lives. What happens?
We started to build. So we were vertical and all that, and then I think I walked in one day and I told Robin, I said, it's just not fun right now. And that's very rare for me. I loved what I did, but it was just maybe having a bad day. And Robin took that and away, off to the races she went. And that's how we met you. So
you went from being one of the largest Chrysler dealers, well, often the largest in the Southeast, and planning a 20-acre expansion to build the nicest Chrysler store in America, probably. And you decide it's time for a change. And so you decide to sell the business. We can't disclose the numbers, but it set a record for the most money ever for a Stellantis dealership. So clearly a testament to your achievement of what was, and then what your plan was for what will be.
We needed to sell for a lot of money because I knew she was getting a lot of money for what turned out to be her foundation, and we're going to give a lot of money away. So, that's why it worked out.
So let's talk about, so in your mind, when Jack came to you and said, this is not fun anymore, maybe we should sell, you already had an idea what you want to do in the next phase of your career, or did it just come in your head at that time?
No, I'd already been plotting and planning behind the scenes. I knew that it was getting close to time.
What was it?
Well, we had close to 200 employees. And I'll tell you, every morning when you get up out of bed and it's like, you look at your text messages and you already have half a dozen things to deal with. And then, we have 3 children and soon to be our 9th grandchild. So our family life is substantial.
And none of the kids were in the business.
No.
Correct.
They all chose different careers.
They did. And so our lives were very rich and full of a lot of things. And so I knew we would be fine. And I knew it was getting time. And so I was like, great, let's do it. Let's get out of here. And it's the top. I mean, things are great. How much better can it get? Right. And I said, let's at least try. So when he came in that day, he's like, oh, I'm like, perfect. Make some calls, get us going while we're in the middle of this build. That's fine. I'm sure they can sell that along with it, sell it all. Because then he's like, oh, should we sell one of the dealerships, keep one? No, the whole thing, got to go. So I had already started working with our attorney about a foundation, a family foundation. So we already had that in the works behind the scenes. And when I talked to our accountant, and he's like, well, if you sell the dealerships, we'll be able to take a big chunk of money so we don't have to, for tax purposes, and be able to put it into the foundation.
Are you comfortable sharing that amount? Because it's
the foundation?
The amount that you took and put in there?
Over $20 million.
So I think that's amazing, right? Yeah. I mean, auto dealers across the country are charitable. They give a lot of money to their community. They agree with what you all have done, I know. But to be able to take that amount of money and put it into foundation, just recently, I think you received an award. Is that correct?
As a matter of fact, Thursday, yes, I'll be receiving the Duke Citizenship Award for our area. But I did a big lunch back in December, and we gave away $250,000. We did $25,000 grants, and it was to the local small charities, not big ones, because 25,000 for the American Heart Association or something wouldn't make a dent for them. But to have a small animal rescue who, is running on pennies, of donations, to get a $25,000 check, we had everybody crying. The whole room was crying at one point. It was the most incredible luncheon. It was the most incredible event. And I just knew then, I'm like, this is what this is all about. We worked hard for 20 years. My retirement in automotive was not retirement. We worked many hours, and it's all paid off, and it's incredible.
The name of the foundation is Giving with Grace Foundation. It's named after one of our grandkids, Landry. Her middle name is Grace, so it's named after part of that. But the beauty of it, because our children weren't in the car business, they're in the family foundation. They're on the board. Our kids and our older grandchildren, and they got to vote. And so when Robin received 50 grants, she would share all the grants with the kids, and you pick one. So we did 10. Robin and I each picked one, and everybody else picked 8. And Robin had several people get up at that day at the luncheon and said this grant was selected by Ian, our 12-year-old grandson from Florida. And so what turned out to be, we're just presenting you a check for $25,000. Then they got emotional, and they all wrote thank you letters to each of the grandkids that selected them. So, the car business has served us well, and I want to think that we treated our employees and our customers well, and we're doing good with the money. I mean, it's not just, we're not going to the beach every day.
Giving back to the community that made us successful as a car dealer. Like, people were like, aren't you going to move when we sold the dealerships? Aren't you going to move to Florida? They were afraid we had realtors calling us wanting our house, which I love my house. I'm like, no, thank you. Then I thought, well, I don't know. Maybe we should put a big price tag on our house. Maybe we can set a record with that too. But I said, no, we love this community. So we're going to stay here and give back into the community that made us so successful.
So that term, so successful, is evident, I think, by some awards, Jack, that you were selected to receive, that you earned, I guess I could say, by the state of North Carolina and beyond. Do you want to share what that was like?
Yeah, the state dealer association and Bob Glasser nominated me for Time Deal of the Year. Go to Vegas, and there's 50 dealers, and we're in a cocktail reception, and then they say, hey, we need all the dealers to come downstairs. We're going to do a rehearsal. And I had my nephew with me, and I said, text, Aunt Robin and your dad and tell them to come down here, because on the screen was all these really neat things. And when they would announce somebody, they got like a wing of a hospital named after them, a ball field named after them. I'm like, what in the world are we doing here? Right? I mean, how are we in this room? And it turns out after we were named a finalists, and then we won, the people from Northwood.
Wait, you just kind of glazed over that a little fast. So when you say you were nominated and you won, are you talking about for North Carolina, or are you talking about for national?
So we won for North Carolina, and then we go to Vegas, and then we won the National Time Deal of the Year award, and just honestly, complete shock. I knew we did what we did, but we were in Cornelius, North Carolina, a town of 15, 20,000 people, right? I mean, so for us to be here on a national stage was, incredible. And yes, the award came in my name because I was a dealer principal, but I immediately got on stage and I said, I think you have it wrong, and I think Robin should get the award, and brought her on stage. And, I think our secret sauce as a car dealer, we had 2 CEOs. I mean, she handled her half the business, and I tried as best I could to stay in my lane, and that was like sales, service, and parts and stuff. And she handled like HR and all the community stuff and things like that. But the awards definitely was for both of us.
So how was that to have a professional relationship for 10, 12 hours a day and then go home? Did you have certain rules, like once we cross the threshold, we're not talking about business, or?
No.
No.
You were just for 24/7.
It was.
In the business.
It was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we poured our heart and soul into it every day.
Did you, as a couple, ever say, okay, you win this argument, but I win the next argument, or did you just always give Robin did she always win?
I don't think
Because I'm sure there were some debates. I'll call
No,
them,
there
not
was.
arguments.
There was.
No, I would let you. He was the idea guy, and so I gave him this. I graded his ideas as an A plus for ideas. It was his execution was where we got a little rocky. Okay, he would come up with these grandiose ideas, and then it would be pushed off on me to make sure that everybody got it executed internally. But so we ended up having just a really great working relationship, and I don't think we ever had anything where we didn't speak or anything.
Yeah.
We didn't have any big problems. No.
That right there, we were talking a little bit about that last night where he said you guys were the perfect balance because Jack is a skyrocket to the top guy and you're slow and steady and methodical. And that combination,
we both get to the finish line. I probably travel about 10 times many more miles as she does. She's much more efficient, but we both get to the same place.
So you decided to sell, and we obviously were delighted to be part of that. And
let me just say this. I'll say it. You guys were the best, and I enjoyed working with Derek. I mean, it was great, and the experience that you guys provided, because I never knew how emotional it was going to be. I wasn't ready for that. But, you guys were great, and just making the whole thing, as seamless as it could.
I think for a period of 6 months, still today, but you were my best friend. I talked to you every day. I talked to you every day for a couple hours, and with Jim Godfrey too, which is I feel like part of the crew, and I got to give him a shout out because just this whole conversation, my CPA background, hearing all the charitable giving, foundation, building a new building, I just kept thinking how busy you kept Jim for 3 years in a row.
But that's it. But it's funny you say that because our relationship with Jim, I remember we had a controller. We only had 2 controllers, but one of them, she said, he's not your friend, he's billing you. And I'm like, that's just not how we treat people. I mean, we're friends. Yes, I want him to bill me. Mm-hmm. I don't care what he bills me. But we ended up, Jim became one of my best friends. And that's just how we work as, people. I mean, if you're in the group, you're in the group. And, that's why, Alan says, the tough part of our business is, when clients once. I'm like, that's just not how we work. We'll see well afterwards. And here we are.
Here we are. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, the business sells. The night of closing, I remember going to our dinner to celebrate. I bought a bottle of Cristal champagne. I think it's the only time I ever bought a bottle to celebrate. And we're having the waiters pouring it for us. And I'm sitting next to Jack, and Jack is not smiling. He has a little bit of a long face, and he's asking me, do you think that they'll sell me Gastonia back? Do you remember that? You were already thinking about re-entering the industry because you loved it so much, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you haven't exited the industry. You've exited ownership of those 2 dealerships, right. And you've re-entered, I think, a couple new interesting business development opportunities. Do you want to share what you're working on?
Yeah, so one's called thiscar.com. I really always had a hard time with, the auto traders and the cars.com and the car gurus and whatever else that was out there. Because I always felt it was the dealers, it was our investment, and why should they profit? So we started a company where we got 30 car dealers from around the country to invest in the company, and we would become a marketplace, a used car marketplace. We would list their car, but they would own part of the company. You can't do that at Auto Trader, right? You're paying them. So we would list their cars and sell it in markets that they're not in. Now April will be a year. We're turning the corner. We're going to sell 300 cars, this month. And I think, plenty more next month. We're finally kind of getting our feet under us. But the biggest part of it is we're buying inventory. And I think acquiring inventory is a used car or a car dealer's biggest issue right now. Acquiring the right used car, right? So, sometimes we buy them at auction, they're not the right car, and they're at an auction for a reason. We're buying them off the street, and we'll buy several hundred a month right now. And that's really helping these car dealers.
So not that car, it's thiscar.com.
Thiscar.com.
Okay. And what else are you cooking up?
So, but with this car, because we set it up before we sold, I knew I wasn't going to be the CEO. And there's 3 founders, and then there's 30 dealer partners that own it. And I'm like, this retirement thing, Robin's having the time of her life and wish we would have done it 10 years earlier. And I'm like, okay, well, these are the 30 most miserable days of my life. And I just kept looking. I looked at a couple car deals and asked Derek and what's out there. And I'm like, I don't know if, we had the best stores. I mean, and we really were close to our folks. I'm like, do I want another car dealership or can I do something else? And, Robin plays pickleball and her friend came over and she goes, Jack, you should, build a pickleball place. I'm like, well, what does that mean? So I say, okay, fine. Have a good night. Bye. And then I go behind the scenes and every day, I was just researching and I just put some thought and energy and a business plan together. And I'm like, hey, Robin, this might not be a crazy idea. And so we are opening the Serve Pickleball and Kitchen. And it's as big as the car dealership. It's 55,000 square feet indoors and another 10,000 square feet outdoors and 16 pickleball courts. We'll have a pickleball professional. We've hired a food and beverage director. We have a restaurant that seats 94, cafe that seats 26, and a bar and a lounge that seats 40. It's a big place. And I have to say this, maybe it's just all those years of showing love to the community. The reception from the community has been outstanding. They can't wait.
Crazy. We will have a community room also that'll seat 50 to 60 people. I'll be able to also have community events and we'll be able to book tournaments for charitable tournaments, pickleball tournaments. It's going to be great. And yes, everywhere we go, everybody just wants to know, when's it open? Can I be a member? And so it'll be fun. And
I also wanted a business I'd have to wear a suit and tie every day.
So let me go back to so that's incredible that you have two new careers, really, 2.5, I would say, as you're a board member, investor, and then the owner operator running the foundation.
And the foundation's a big deal right now. I mean, you're getting grant requests every day.
Oh yeah, I get grant. Yeah, every day.
Yeah.
Well, I saw on LinkedIn the other day. I mean, you were part of the Make-A-Wish Foundation event. You guys raised over $2 million.
$2 million. I'm the chairperson for the Wish Ball. And we had a record year, 2.2 million. It was great.
Every time Robin's been the chairperson, I set a record.
I know. I'm very competitive.
Well, so let me ask you, go back, 2 questions left. If you were to address the next generation of auto dealers or truck or power sports or RV, what suggestions would you give them? What advice?
First of all, you have to outwork everybody. I think we did that. I mean, it was 24/7 for us. The other thing is first of all, you have to bet on yourself. Because nobody's going to bet on you more than you. And I think a lot of people are afraid of betting on themselves. And, it's not easy, right? Because some people need more guidance and things like that. But if you can bet on yourself and, you can, if you do that, then you put yourself in a good position. And then when you're in that position, make sure you treat everybody like family. And, we joke, but we were definitely a mom and pop operation because everybody was like family to us. And when we exited, it was 250 people.
So work really hard, bet on yourself, treat people like family. Robin, do you have something else you would add to that?
I think it's important to be a good citizen in your community. Mm-hmm. I think that you can't, a lot, car dealers especially really get a bad rap. It's like, oh, car dealers, they're just going to take our money and not take care of us. And it doesn't have to be that way. It really doesn't have to be. And I think we proved that here, that we became really good parts of the community and people enjoyed doing business with us. Mm-hmm. You can get to that point.
All right. So if I ask you what you want your legacy to be on not just the industry, but, through your careers.
I think we treated everybody really well. Yeah. And I think that whether it's the community or employees, mm-hmm. I think we treated everybody really well. We did not have a closed door policy. Our door was open 24/7. Yeah. So,
yeah.
So for those folks, Robin, anything else that you'd want to add on your legacy?
No, it's, I'm the matriarch of my family, so I think I'm pretty solid in my legacy. Everybody comes to me with everything painstakingly sometimes, but it's a good role to play in a family. I enjoy it.
If somebody wanted to support your foundation, how would they do that?
They go to givingwithgrace.org.
Givingwithgrace.org.
Mm-hmm.
If they would like to become a member of the Serve, how will they do that?
Go to theservepickleball.com.
Theservepickleball.com. All right. Well, Jack and Robin Saltzman, thank you so much for sharing with Derek and myself and the other folks who are watching the story of your amazing success in the auto business and beyond. And I think you've inspired us.
Yeah.
And I know anyone who will watch this podcast about how to be a better professional and maybe more importantly, a better person.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you too.